Monarchy is the bedrock of a civilized society. Even a congenital idiot on the throne provides stability, allowing the politicians to happily knife each other in the back without any fear that they may be undermining the fabric of society. That being said, I must confess a certain admiration for the somber young Republican with the Charlie Chaplin moustache who was waiting patiently, cap in hand, outside the polling station on the opposite side of the street. There he was, standing determinedly in line, all set to cast his vote and give the Dago establishment a well-deserved kick in the teeth. The Spanish nation had recently ridded itself of a particularly loathsome dictator, and it was no surprise that the lower orders had now developed an appetite for change. Peering down at the assembled mass of unwashed voters from the comfort of my hotel room on the Pages del Coro, however, it seemed unlikely to me that they would want to take that extra step and vote in a Republican government. Throwing out a dictator was one thing, getting rid of the monarchy quite another. The man with the cap pulled out a rolled-up copy of El Socialista from his jacket pocket and began to read it, in full view of the police. I could not help but admire his nerve. Just the sight of a group of Spaniards queuing politely was a novelty. The buildings on the opposite side of the street were plastered with election posters, and the two policemen were eyeing the crowd suspiciously, but even they could not misread the cheerful enthusiasm of the voters. The Republican was engrossed in his paper, but the rest of the crowd were chatting happily among themselves in that infuriatingly over-exuberant Mediterranean way. It was their first opportunity to vote in almost 8 years, and they were intending to make the most of it. A few women were passing the time of day among the men, their light but rapid-fire voices floating easily up to the window on the 3rd floor. They were not allowed to vote in this election, much to my annoyance, though they were permitted to stand for public office. It was a small step forward, I supposed. As a woman myself, I have always understood the value of a universal franchise. I may have spent the better part of my life masquerading as a man, but I am not a hypocrite. Whenever possible, I have tried to champion the rights of my sex. Women may be as susceptible to popular sentiment as the male of the species, but a truly democratic election cannot take place without them. I stepped back from the window and pulled the wallet from my trouser pocket. The telegram was folded neatly in one corner, and I pulled it out to take another look. The printed message was virtual gibberish, apart from a handful of numbers and the word "stop" in plain text at the end. I had annotated the other characters with a pencil back in Gibraltar using the agreed book code. It had taken me almost half an hour. I have never been much good with ciphers. The encryption key was a paragraph from Chapter 13 of Bleak House. Someone back in London had a peculiarly warped sense of humour. The message, when I had finally deciphered it, was barely more than an address. Hotel La Cava, Pages del Coro, Seville, Sunday 12:30. A more direct summons it would be hard to imagine. And so here I was, ensconced with my man Maurice in a drab hotel room in the centre of Seville, waiting to discover just what it was all about. The valet was brushing down my jacket and preparing to hang it up on the outside of a bare cupboard. A hastily packed suitcase was resting on the bed behind me. I was in my shirt sleeves now. It had been a long journey from Gibraltar, and a change of clothes was in order before I thought about doing anything else. Maurice was a tall, thick-set Frenchman in his mid-50s with a grim, weather-beaten face and a permanently pained expression. He had been my valet for almost a year now, and in all that time his expression had never changed. His clothing was immaculately turned out, but his manner bordered on the surly. "Did you find a place to park the car?" I asked him. "Yes, monsieur," he responded without elaborating. He was a man of few words, and no matter how many times I told him, he refused to address me as Sir.